And you mentioned like the when we talked about all the movement of shots in the massive space of Partenope versus the static shots. The static shots in this are really, really effective. So
Yes.
one thing that, as you know, if you haven't watched this movie yet, listeners, um, this movie is so about the last emperor of China, like we'd mentioned, Puyi, and essentially he becomes emperor at 3 years old and he dies at 61, and we see his life from that time period, like from that
Hmm.
whole stretch.
Yep.
Obviously some parts are glossed over, but still, um, there are only about 8 years of his life from that span where he is not imprisoned in some way or another. Welcome back, everyone. I am excited to kick off this month. For us to kick off this month, for March, we're going to be. We kind of alluded to it a little bit last week, but we're going to be talking about Best Picture winners that also won Best Cinematography. Alex and I are working on a short film, and Alex is my cinematographer, and I'm directing. And we've been working together because the cinematography is a really big part of this short film that we're working on. And we thought, why don't we watch some Best Cinematography winners that happen to be Best Picture winners, since the Oscars are this month as well. And to kick it off, it's not the first chronologically that we're going to be watching, but we weren't sure we could get the other one yet. So we are going to start off with the first of two Peter O'Toole movies this month. I almost said Lawrence of Arabia. That's the other one. That's the chronological first. This is The Last Emperor. And to call it a Peter O'Toole movie is a little. He's
It's a
pretty
little
high billing.
pejorative.
He's
Yeah.
pretty high billing on it, but he is not. I mean, his character is important. It's not a
Yeah.
cameo, but
No,
it's
no, no,
not.
no.
But he's not a main character, and
And
um,
you would be amiss to say, oh yeah, that British guy, the
yeah,
British
yeah,
guy in the funny tuxedo. Yeah, yeah, him. Like that's
yeah,
about the extent. He's there, he's not, and then he's there for a short bit at the end, and then he's gone. He is clearly not the focus of this film.
no,
That's Lawrence of Arabia and all of his eyeliner.
yeah, yeah. And it's nice to see him in a movie. We're going to see him. So we see him in this movie where he is not the only white person, but he is one of only two white people with lines. And the
Yeah.
other one really is a very small part.
Yeah.
And then when we go to Lawrence of Arabia, he will be the only white character, or the main white character, amongst a whole sea of white actors. I mean, we do genuinely have Omar Sharif, but other than Omar
Right.
Sharif, everyone else is not white, or is white playing non-white, which
Is
it's
that
weird. Weird.
playing whiteface?
No,
Or
no,
is
no,
that
no, no.
playing brown face?
It's brown face. But we'll get to that, and we'll get to Obi-Wan sounding exactly like Obi-Wan with a Arab accent, which is crazy.
It
Uh,
really is.
and I still like that's probably still one of my top 10 movies of all time. Like, but yeah, it is a product of its time. But today, so I want to focus every week, because we're doing the cinematography focus, try to focus on a different portion of it. And I think this week, color is really important. I know that we talked about color a month and a half ago with Bertolucci's other film that we've covered. Bertolucci's our first repeat director also on the show, which is
Hmm.
interesting.
Yep. Yeah,
And
of all
color,
directors that we repeated, it's Bertolucci first. I mean, I'm
yeah,
cool with that, but
yeah. You'd think like Spielberg or Scorsese,
yeah,
whom we've gotten nothing from yet, but yeah, no, Bertolucci. Um,
the two Italians picked an Italian.
yeah, but anyway, so the yeah, we're gonna focus on color, and I think that color again is really important in the way that in the context of this film. So let's dive right in.
What are your, because we're talking about color, my big pre production is this is a big canvas epic.
Hmm.
So when we were watching Partenope, a lot of those just huge panning shots, but they weren't panning in this. They were just static and huge. I mean, we're talking
Hmm.
about the Forbidden City, which
Right.
is at the time, quick history lesson, at the time, the Forbidden City is where the emperor of Buddhist China, not the PRC, but Buddhist or I guess pre-modern.
Imperial.
Thank you. Imperial Chinese history. There was the born into his role emperor, and his majesty would live in the Forbidden City. So when we're talking about a big canvas epic, it 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 works kind of like a character study, but the study is the color and the palette and the place.
Right.
So I really think the film swept all 9 Oscars for good reason. It won everything it was nominated in, and for good reason. And
There's one or two that I want to talk about, but yes, I think all of the technical stuff, absolutely. It did win Best Screenplay, and I don't remember what it was up against. I will look that up, but I thought
so
Screenplay
my
was.
the screenplay was meh.
It's
I
good.
agree
It's
with that.
good,
It's
but it
good.
depends.
It's not great.
The movie, the Best Picture and Best Screenplay to me are those wins had to be a product of its year because it's not this is not like a movie where you're like this one Best Picture, but you are like
Yeah.
what could it have been up against? Because like
Right.
it, I thought that it was good. I thought there was a lot of great stuff in both the overall movie and in the screenplay.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where like when you look at what's up that year, it was the 60th Oscars. I'm pulling up the 60th Oscars right now. The 1988 Oscars. Yeah, 60th. So it Last Emperor. Okay, so for it won director. And when you look at Best Picture, broadcast news, which was it's something that we hear about occasionally still. James L. Brooks had won like a year or two ago, a year or two before that for um why am I spacing? Terms of Endearment. So like they're not great. They don't love doing the repeats, that close together, but also like while I've heard good things about broadcast news, I've never seen it. I don't,
Me neither.
it's not like this isn't like this isn't Shakespeare in Love beating Saving Private Ryan, right? Like this is, and then we got Fatal Attraction, Hope and
Mm,
Glory. Hope and Glory is the only one I hadn't heard of on this list, and then Moonstruck. And
ooh. Okay. Moonstruck.
so Moonstruck, Fatal Attraction, Broadcast News. I've not seen any of the three, but from what I've heard, what I would say is like good, not great year, right? So like this movie beating those doesn't bother me too much. If this movie had been up against some others of that have in the past or its future, I'd be like me. But like it gets no there's no acting nominations, which
Yeah.
uh,
True.
it makes sense. Like there, I mean, while I think that some of the acting was very good, it wasn't Oscar worthy, right? And
No,
then we get into
it's a little wooden.
yeah.
A little wooden. It's a little distant. And as an American a native English speaking person, I think
Mhm.
that the Asian actors speaking in English probably
Yeah,
broke some of that possible great acting. Whereas if
right.
they were subtitled, this would have probably gone differently.
But it wouldn't have won Best Picture, most
It wouldn't have
likely.
won Best Picture at that point, correct?
Yeah. So under directing, we have we have 4 out of the 5 Best Picture nominees got best. The only one that wasn't up there is Broadcast News. James L. Brooks doesn't get nominated, but he had just won, I think, a couple years
Recently.
earlier. So instead is My Life as a Dog by Lasse Hallström. I honestly don't know anything about that movie. So like
Me neither.
again, we're not talking about like huge. We're not talking about like a year of like heavy hitters, but we're not talking about a weak year. So then we go into screenplay, which is the other one that I wanted to look at. Okay, screenplay. This is adapted on another medium, so not original screenplay. Um, it
Okay, I
it
didn't know
beats
that.
it beats out The Dead. Oh, that's an interesting. You didn't know it was based
No,
on
an
something else.
adapted media. It wasn't like original screenplay made for. It was like adapted.
Okay, so this movie screenplay is adapted on uh Puyi's autobiography, which, as far as I can tell,
Oh,
is what they make him write. And then he was, and then they published it. As far as I can
oh,
tell,
right.
I could be
Okay.
wrong, which is really
Oh,
interesting,
that
right?
added some depth. Oh,
Yeah, and we'll get to
okay.
that. But so you look at, okay, best writing. It beats The Dead, which is based on a James Joyce short story. I'm not familiar with that movie. Um, yeah, it's done by John Huston, directed by John Huston, written by his son, starring his daughter. Who I know who John Huston is. I know who Angelica Houston is, but I don't know anything else about this. You know, it beats out Fatal Attraction screenplay.
Mm,
Um, Again, haven't seen it. It beats out Full Metal Jacket.
ooh,
Full Metal Jacket, I would argue, is the best Kubrick script possibly.
okay.
Other than Strangelove, like, but when he
Y-
gets into that real Kubrick like intensity, this is the one that I think is it's
And Kubrick intensity comes on picture, not on writing. It's not
right,
that the
right,
writing's bad, but Kubrick is his element
yeah, yeah,
when it's in film. Screenplay, so fair.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
no,
like,
Full Metal Jacket is top Kubrick screenwriting.
right, and so like that one, that's probably the one. I mean, it's the only other one I've seen, to be fair, but it's also like I would kind of go, yeah, that makes, like, that one kind of could beat Last Emperor. They both are interesting. And then Life as a Dog is the last one. But as far as other wins that this movie got, it got best music. The music is beautiful in it. I don't have a problem with
True.
that.
Nope.
And that's really score, not song.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then because best song went to "I've Had the Time of My Life" from Dirty Dancing, which I hate Dirty Dancing, but I don't hate that song. That song does deserve to win.
No one puts
Um,
Mikey in a corner.
yeah, I hate that movie. That would be arguably my least favorite movie of all time.
Now
Um,
I know what we're watching one week.
hmm.
You shouldn't have
Last
told me that.
Okay, Last Emperor also wins best sound, deserves it. Best
Deserves it.
cinematography, I shouldn't say deserves it because I
Absolute
literally
cinema.
haven't. I've only the only other best sound movie I had seen is RoboCop, um, but and Lethal Weapon I saw too. But then, okay, we get into best art direction. Obviously, this deserves
Yeah.
it. Best cinematography. Obviously, this deserves it. It didn't get nominated for best makeup. Weirdly enough, best makeup only had 2 nominees.
Oh.
I actually thought that this movie could win best makeup. I I would have guessed that was on the
Like
list.
makeup and costuming is obviously such a
It
big part of it,
Yeah,
and it added a lot to our focus this episode of color. There was a
yeah.
lot of specific expression in costuming and somewhat in makeup of color.
Well, yeah, it wins best costume. And then but as far as makeup, like, I think like the women are very made up, right?
The men are
Um,
not almost at all.
but then you
And
do have Puyi, and like there was a little bit where I was like, is it the same actor playing like 20-year-old Puyi as 60-year-old Puyi? And it is.
that is one of my criticisms of this.
I
It's
I mean,
so bad.
no, it looks like old man makeup for a good portion of it. But even
Yeah.
when he's in that like in between stage, like when you look
Yeah.
at him in his at 40-year-old Puyi and 20-year-old Puyi, it's the same actor.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it the same actor? Like, and I was like, they did such a good job of making him look like a 40-year-old and making him look. I would not
As
have
soon as he's
hated.
past 40, like the acting and makeup quality just goes off a
Oh, his acting
cliff.
quality, I
It's
think, holds up. And he has the stance of an old Chinese man. Like, I've seen old Chinese men before,
I mean, I have
and
too, but it's just so exaggerated.
oh
That is
no,
one of my
no.
criticisms.
My neighbor is Chinese, and her husband, not her husband, her father has come to visit, and unfortunately, he's gotten lost in the neighborhood, and we've all gone out looking for him, and he walks exactly the same way as
Hands
Puyi
behind
does in.
back, tilted at the waist, kind of
Hmm.
like, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Like,
All right.
so
All
so to
right.
me, I thought that that was perfect. And
Maybe
just
it is just
walk like that.
exaggerated.
That, like, I'm going for a walk. Yeah, I mean, but it also is, he's what, a 30-year-old man playing a 60-year-old, so there is an extent to which. And my neighbor's dad is probably 80 something, not 30, not
Yeah.
60, but you know, we age differently now than we did 100 years ago, right? So,
And
or
also, I guess white
60
people
years.
age differently than Chinese people.
Sure,
They
sure.
probably they live longer than we do. That's for sure. There are many
Well,
Chinese people that are going to live longer than the both of
yeah.
us.
And my neighbor's father didn't spend 10 years in prison. So,
Well, there's
um
that.
all
So
right.
on color,
Sorry, call it. Well, I want to mention, okay, you mentioned space, and you mentioned like the when we talked about all the movement of shots in the massive space of Partenope versus the static shots. The static shots in this are really, really effective. So
yes.
one thing that, as you know, if you haven't watched this movie yet, listeners, um, this movie is so it's about the last emperor of China, like we'd mentioned, Puyi, and essentially he becomes emperor at 3 years old, and he dies at 61, and we see his life from that time period, like from that
Hmm.
whole stretch.
Yep.
Obviously some parts are glossed over, but still, um, there are only about 8 years of his life from that span where he is not imprisoned in some way or another.
Hmm.
um, and they are glossed over. That's the part that gets glossed over probably the most, because it's just the last couple like
I mean, it doesn't get
scenes.
addressed, but it's almost obvious
Yeah, right.
because Puyi talks about it. He's like, "Wait, I'm
Yeah,
I'm captive in my own palace," and they're like,
yeah.
"Yeah, have you seen outside?"
Yeah. So like literally as a little kid, he's stuck in the palace. Now the palace is massive, right? It's huge, but it's also he's isolated in it. There's like when his little brother finally comes to live with him or to spend time with him, he's literally never seen other kids. Um and he's he's surrounded by eunuchs and wet nurses and all these other people to take care of him. And Peter O'Toole has the line, "I think the emperor is the loneliest boy in the world," and he's
I love
trapped in
that.
this palace. And then and then when they finally have to leave the palace because there's been a shift in government in the 20s, so he'd be like a mid to late teenager, early 20s maybe.
Hmm.
um he is taken from the palace. As far as the movie tells us, that's the first time he ever leaves the palace. And he is taken into hiding, essentially, like kind of hiding, like it's like an open secret that, or
You could
he.
say it's political exile, but it's not exactly political exile.
Right, right. It's again, it's opulent imprisonment. It's
Yeah,
essentially. And then from there
it's like
he
Ghislaine
goes.
Maxwell imprisonment.
Right. He goes back to another palace, and then where he's not allowed to leave, and that's accentuated by there's a scene where when his mother dies, they don't let him out to see the body or to
Yep.
see his mother. When his wife has a stillborn, which I will say that like they called it a stillborn, but what they also showed the baby
Bro,
crying. So like I don't know if that was just because they didn't want to show us a stillborn baby, or if that was because there was like more to it and they actually killed that baby because it
they
wasn't his.
killed the baby.
That was for
Mike,
sure. Oh,
Mike, come
okay.
on. It is moving, it is making noise. They show a
I didn't
giant
know.
syringe being filled,
Oh,
and then
I missed that part.
oh yeah, no, like
Oh,
they
okay.
show a big syringe being
So
filled by one of the
yeah,
doctors, and that same doctor comes into Puyi and
yeah,
says,
yeah, yeah.
"The baby didn't make it." And I'm like,
Okay,
"Did it not?"
so when his wife has this, when they kill the baby, his wife is taken out basically to like kind of like calm her down because she's in, I don't want
because
to
she
say.
knows they killed her
Yeah.
baby, and
Right.
she's
And
about to tell him.
she's a wreck, right? She's a wreck.
Yeah.
And so he chases the car out trying to catch up to the car, and just as they did with his mother's death, they close the gates on him, and he like mutters under his breath like, open it, like the way he
Open
had
the
yelled
door.
at them.
Yep. Yep.
And he
I loved
basically
that I
realizes
loved that.
that I'm trapped the way I've always been trapped.
Mhm.
Then he goes to a literal prison, where, once the communists take over, he goes to a prison and re-education prison, where he's basically made to confess all of his sins against the people of China.
Yep.
Which, honestly, that part was like super duper interesting, because we've been given such propaganda against communist China, and obviously there's a lot of bad, and like even the prison, but the prison is done in a much more nuanced way. Like at first you're like, oh, this is exactly what I've always thought of it, and then you realize like, no, like he did do some, like he is responsible for some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, and he learns his lesson, and we kind of go, oh, okay, like, and then we get to see like at the end, when his the governor of the prison is there, and the communists are there, like running these people out of through town or whatever. Oh, like, okay, there is, there basically, that's the movie's way of saying like, communism's not good, like communist China is
Now
not
look,
good, like,
communism isn't good.
just because a broken
Little
clock
red
is right twice a
cookbook,
day.
little red cookbook. Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh
So
boy.
I also think so those static shots really make that feeling of like this massive space that you can't move in, which I thought was really interesting. But also, each of those palaces, each of those prisons has its own color system. Um and like, obviously, red and gold are really important colors to the Chinese people, to specifically Buddhists, I think. Um they have a lot of symbolism, and also, in that prison, or that palace, when he's in the Forbidden City, there's lots of red, and there is gold, but it's imperial gold, and he tells his brother like, you're not allowed to wear that. That's my
I
color.
remember that. I remember
And
that.
so there's all these colors going back and forth. Also,
The eunuchs and the eunuchs and and like his handlers, basically,
mhm,
like when his brother, that same scene, when his brother like takes them out into the courtyard and makes them chase them around, and they're all, oh no, the king has run away, and they like follow this dude into the courtyard with
yeah,
his cavalcade, his guards, them, the seat, the chair. They're like, and then they intentionally start wrapping them around each other. That is the silliest little thing that a child would do, but it is hilarious because of how much all of his like subjects kowtow literally around
mhm,
him, but then at the same time they understand how absurd this is. They
yeah,
do. And they understand how absurd this is because his own eunuchs steal from him because
yeah,
they don't like him. But we're getting too far deep past pre-production. my
yeah,
my my big thing about the film is it uses color, I felt, as a political weather system, or like
mhm,
a political meteorology, like a way to anticipate what's about to happen, but it's only shown to the audience. And that
yes,
was that was my biggest takeaway, is how color was used. It wasn't just to be beautiful. It wasn't, although it wasn't just to be breathtaking or to make a point, which it did. It was always about what's about to happen. And then the
mhm,
next scene where the bad thing is happening, now it's gray and drab and raining and sad and
mhm,
blue, and the color temperature's way down. But then
yeah,
back in the city, you even see the city start to not
mhm,
always look so red and bold and beautiful. It starts to look a little unclean and
yeah,
hairy and crumbling. Like that even took place,
yeah.
color and physical appearance.
Yes, I agree with you. I also think that the movie itself is broken. So it's Puyi's life, but it is also
Yep.
Puyi is such a reflection of what China is in each of the that over that 60 year span.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because China changes governments essentially 4 times during this, if I followed all of it correctly,
It's at
and
least
and so
three.
Puyi, it's at least 3. I think it's closer to 4. I think it was 4 because he's the
Well,
emperor. Then
Mao, PRC, him, and what was the fourth?
Shanghai Czech, is that PRC? And I don't know
No, I
that I
don't think
said that
that's
right.
I don't think that's People's Republic of China. No, that is the
I think
fourth
that
then,
was a
yeah.
genuine democracy, isn't it? I don't know because so anyway, there's all these periods going on of his life of China, and all of them are so like, he's reflective of so much of it. So like they're so intrinsically intertwined that
Yeah.
like a great symbol for us as the audience is color, like switch the colors up. So we do, like you said, we get those the grayish bluish sad tones when he's in the prison,
Hmm.
which also like when as they're getting ready to announce that he is going to be free because he's served his time and he's reformed, we see plants coming in because he's always kind of inside. That's another thing with the movie is he's always inside outside, like he's in courtyards. He's never just, other than one exception, like that when
He's
he's
never just like roaming around the real world. He's
right,
always somehow
he's
protected in a bubble. And you're right,
yeah,
he was literally gardening
right. And so
inside
like
the prison.
right, but so he's always got that inside outside thing, but there's always been color and vegetation of some kind. There were
Yeah.
flowers when he was the emperor again. There was the flowers that she's eating, and there's all these other things of color, and there is no color other than that like bluish gray, like cold tones in the prison. And then he gets to the gardening, and it's because he's finally like assimilated into the thing, and he's finally going what do you call it? He's finally moving into like getting ready to leave and like
Oh,
getting
okay.
his freedom, and we see greens because in all the flower colors because he's gardening.
Yep.
So like I thought that was so well articulated, the
Hmm.
color palette of this movie.
Im- you actually just touched on it. The imperial yellows, golds, and reds. Now, imperial yellow is closer to what real gold looks like.
Hmm.
So it's closer to like this than it is to like like traffic signal yellow, right?
Yeah.
And it is specifically because it was yellow silk. It was yellow damask. So these were like the genuine pigments of their time. And uh the ceremonial spaces inside the palace had those colors. And then the density of them increasing when the court is like performing empire duties. Like you'll see all of these colors and the costumes like start to step up and these colors become more intense. One
Hmm.
of the one of the scenes production wise that stood out to me was when Puyi is much too old to be nursing, but is in the garden
Yeah.
in what I
Oh
can
no,
only
I knew.
expect is one of the hundreds of gardens that are inside this place.
Yeah.
All of the wives of the other emperors are on that boat, just like weirdly just floating
Watching.
to
Yeah.
to float. Like they're not sitting and drinking tea, they're not eating, they're not reading books or playing mahjong. No, they're like just floating on a very still pond in a boat with a mirror. That's
Hmm.
weird. But anyway, so they're all watching, and each one of them had an equally bold and intense, but completely different color palette. And it was
Hmm.
probably representative of each of their husband's favorite colors or favorite flowers, whatever it is, because Chinese and Japanese, so Asian culture is usually really focused on nature. And considering how big the gardens were, that makes sense. So I would expect that each of these women were in the garb of their husband's favorite colors or memories. And the palette can even make Puyi look powerful and tiny at the
Yeah.
same time. Now, I know it is historically accurate, but those big hats are often bigger than their heads, and I expect that's on purpose. But they are so wide that, especially when Puyi was much smaller, even though the hat was big and bold and the feathers and the colors, he often looked very tiny
Yeah.
and diminutive and childish and
Hmm.
almost like puppety, like not real government puppety.
Yeah.
And
No.
color is also ritual entrapment. Color shifts with the Western modernity. Like, for example, Peter O'Toole wears a weird gray dove tuxedo. I have no idea why, but that's what he wears. And then color as the political transition. We mentioned that already in pre production as the different eras of China and its governing bodies shift. And then the last for me was color as humanization late in the film, where the
Yeah.
colors aren't so bold. They're there, but they
Yeah.
start to balance. And especially in the final scene, where I swear to you, Puyi is a ghost. I don't think he was really there, but
No.
he must have been somehow because the cricket's real. But how is the cricket still alive? Doesn't matter. That's for later. So, like,
It's a
even
metaphor.
then, I get it, but like, is the cricket still really
Okay.
alive? No.
No, but that's a
So,
metaphor
so,
too.
so right. So even then, like the red is there, but it's not as bold. It's
Right.
there, but it's a little more muted. So it's bringing this huge political influence and like fanfare down to a level that's a little more normal. And I also think that the tour guide Bullhorn playing Yankee Doodle Dandy was the most jarring, upsetting,
Well, it's like a MIDI
gross.
version too,
Oh, it's so bad. And it
because
was
it's
like,
so
does it
electronic
have to
sounding.
be that? Like, yeah, I know, but it's like, does it have to be that song? Like the big United States revolutionary anthem in the middle of the Chinese Forbidden City. Like, come on. But either way,
Yeah.
so for me, those are the production hits. Is all the way that color brought the
Hmm.
film its accolades, but also its quality of storytelling.
Yes. Yeah. Um. Yeah. This movie, like, there's so many things working. Like, there's nothing that I would say does other than the little bit of makeup that you have an issue with. There's nothing that I would say isn't. It is funny too because in The Conformist, when we saw the guy that was his molester 50 years later or 30 years later or whatever it was, his makeup was also fucking terrible in the old man
It
makeup.
really was.
I didn't.
Yeah.
This one didn't not work for me as much as that. Like this, I thought was like it has that like stage makeupy look, but it's not. It's not
It
terrible.
does.
Terrible.
It does, but also Puyi, the actor that played Puyi, was naturally that like pale in his
Yeah.
complexion.
Yeah.
So the guy who was who played, oh god, what was his name, the molester in The
Yeah. Yeah.
Conformist, he's more olive toned Italian. So I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
makeup like was more like the edges were more jarring and not as blended.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the color is stunning in this. The color, absolutely, like it's funny because I think if you desaturate this movie, while I think that it's still entertaining to watch, it's still like
It
it
falls
does
out a
tell
little.
it. It would. There's no way that it like wins like this because I remember being a kid. I was probably like I don't know, like a young teenager when I watched this movie because I was trying to watch all the Best Picture nominees, and so
No,
like
you were trying to watch Chinese titty. Stop.
I no, because it's like PG. Like, so I don't
Yeah,
think I
I
knew that.
know.
Like, I
Whatever.
didn't think I was. I don't think I was going into this movie thinking there's gonna be titties,
You let my joke die. I don't like
or
you.
toe
Stop.
sucking.
Oh, the toe sucking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Ugh.
Um, now I also didn't at that point in my life I didn't know who Bertolucci was to know that
Oh, okay.
like every one of his movies has some kind of sex like going on.
It
Um,
does.
but no, but when I remember, so I remember two things about this movie from when I was a kid. I remember that I thought it was pretty good. Like I remember being like surprised that it was good, and then I remember the pissing in the can or in the bucket part. I remember
Yep.
that line, and like when I wake up in the middle of the night, to pee,
Do you
I
think of that?
always I for 25 years I've always thought of that.
Same.
And I try to
Yeah.
like I go from, cuz sometimes especially if I'm not turning the light on, I have like that bare dark like bare light of like the street lamp coming in from, barely. I'll pee into the center just so that I have the like sound that like I'm doing it by
And then you'll
echolocation.
move it to the
Then I just
side.
then I just move it to the side till the sound.
Yeah.
And that's because of this movie. And then I didn't remember much else of it. I didn't remember the boobs. I remembered that there was lots of color, but and I remember, but then last night when I started, did I start it last night or the night before?
No, night
I think
before,
I watched
because
like 20.
when we
Yeah,
worked yesterday, yeah.
yeah. I watched like the first 20, 25 minutes the night before last, and I remember, and I was starting to watch it. And I'm like, this movie is immediately visually stunning.
Hmm.
There's nothing like I remember kind of like at that part of it 2 nights ago. I was thinking like, oh, maybe this isn't as good a movie as I remembered. This movie just is visually stunning, but does it have much going on, or is it
Yeah.
just kind of telling the story of China?
Hmm.
And then last night I was, there's a lot of the movie that is pretty quiet, and some of it is quiet in a way that is fine. And you like last night I was watching downstairs, and the dog Gally got a squeak toy, and I literally had to stop the movie because the squeak I could not hear what was going on. Like
Yeah.
and Sarah and Logan are like, "Are you okay?" She's been squeaking for like an hour. I'm like, "Yeah." For the first 25 minutes, I could hear what was going on, or
But
I
now,
didn't
like, the
need.
sound floor
I
is
did.
here, and I can't
Well,
hear it.
it was more like there's nothing going on that I need to hear,
Yeah.
and then it got to a part where like that's when Peter O'Toole shows up. I'm like, I need to hear this. Like, this is actual dialogue.
Oh,
This
and
isn't
he's soft
just
spoken too.
right.
He's
This
not a
isn't little
big.
kids. Yeah, this isn't little kids being like, "You're not the emperor anymore." Like, it was so
Yeah,
basic,
that's my
their
color.
sentences that you didn't like. The dog squeaking wasn't a big deal. And then when he comes in, I was like, okay, but as once he comes in,
Spectacles.
it really takes. And it's funny because like I said before, Peter O'Toole's not a huge part of the movie. Like
He's a huge part
screen
of the
time,
history, but he's not that big
he's
a part of the movie.
right. He screen time wise, he's not that big of a part. It's integral. What he brings to the movie is integral. But like
Yeah.
that's where it kicks off, and like me getting interested beyond visuals, beyond like, oh, this is a painting. Like this is just a bunch of cool, like series of photos that are like really beautiful. He is where like when he starts advocating for Puyi, and Puyi, we start to see Puyi become a character more than just like a little boy that's reflecting this weird situation, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So anyway, should we move on?
Color doesn't play a big part in editing, obviously, but where edits are made, again, this is 1987. This
Okay.
is shot on real film, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the, the
I want to say something though, real quick, about the podcast format that because you just said something that made me think, oh, we're not on the same page, and I hope that our audience understands that I've given these names to the sections in order to like show the series like how we progress through. We don't have to talk about editing like under the notes that I have. It's like this is where we talk about what it got right, what could have been improved. Studio notes is like hot takes and things that like are weird, like
yeah,
weird us stuff. And then and those are all reflective of, but like editing doesn't have to be about editing. And in a movie that we're talking about color and cinematography, I don't know that we can if there was any editing intrigue in this movie. But like to me, the reason I mention that, Alex, is that I have wondered for the last 2 months. I wonder if it's clear to the audience what's going on. And then you just said it that way, and I'm like, oh, maybe Alex didn't know where I was coming from with this either. Especially, knowing that 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago you were like, oh, I don't know what a denouement is. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it's the final sign-off kind of thing. And
Well,
it's there.
and the joke that I made was, yeah, the French thing for
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
editing wise, I still feel in a literal sense, editing in
yeah.
color shook hands a little bit. So the
Well, editing
cuts
and
would
cinematography very much take
they
those two
absolutely
things
do.
always
So
go together. Color, especially in the pre-digital, like they did do color correction on film back then, but
oh yeah,
it's a very different process than it is now. And
and it's not as extreme.
right, and I would get yeah,
The levels that you could correct color or make a visual difference are smaller.
right,
So or were smaller then. So my for me the cinematography, the editing of the flashbacks, they gave emotion, they gave image shape and color temperature to the scenes. And I mean, it's such a big part of this because we've already discussed it in the previous sections. Like, it happened. You would see these shifts in time, but you would also see these shifts in character. So I remember the first time I saw Puyi start to wear like Western garments.
yeah,
And then that was obviously as the tutor, Peter O'Toole, his influence started to happen. And
hmm
also, just as a historical kind of idea, I always wondered, did did the British government say, no, 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 we're sending this attaché? Or did the imperial government of China say, we need to be more modern, we need to be more of this time, we're losing our grip on the people because the PRC is starting to rise up,
yeah,
let's get a Westerner in a dove tuxedo to come
yeah,
teach Puyi to function properly, and also to have spectacles, your majesty. Like, even that kind of stuff was so like, oh no. And I even remember when they started doing the spectacle scene, I actually said, Holly, pause it. My wife's Holly. I said, Holly, pause it. I was like, how many little Chinese dudes do you not see wearing glasses now? And she says, like, all of them. I'm like, exactly, all of them. Is this where it started? Is this the genesis of it's okay for Chinese people to wear glasses?
yeah.
But yeah.
So as far as I had some of that same thought. So like from what I know of Chinese political history, I know that the British had Hong Kong for
Mhm.
100-year lease, which was 1897 to 1997. I know that because my wife lived in Hong Kong when it was handed back from the British government. They left. Her family left Hong Kong at that time to go to Canada for fear of not necessarily just political uncertainty. So that's why I know what that 100-year lease span is. I don't know what Britain's influence on mainland China was in that time period. So the way that I looked at it was that they probably brought um, Peter O'Toole's
They,
character
meaning the imperial
in.
government, said we
Yeah.
need the
Okay.
influence. Okay.
So at that point in time, they got a prime minister and he is the emperor only within the Forbidden City. And so like I got the feeling that
Mm.
like the rest of the government was like, we'll just leave this kid alone, in like not gonna rob him
Okay.
of what we've set him up for, but we're like the rest of the government's doing its own thing. As far as I could tell, that's what's going on. And I
I'm
think
game.
that he was interested in Western culture to some extent and interested in learning, and they were like, okay, we'll bring somebody in to kind
Well,
of
it's
to
Vogue.
right, right. Well,
During this
because
time,
even
Western culture was Vogue for eastern parts of the
yeah,
world.
but even on their first meeting, he says like, "I want to learn this and I want to learn that," and he doesn't know that much. Like he didn't know who George Washington was. He says, "Is he
Do all
still is?"
Americans look like this?
Yeah, he knew about Russia. He knew about
Yep.
some of the stuff about Russia because it's their neighboring country, but he didn't know about and so he was like, "Is he like this? Is he similar to was it Lenin or at
It
that
was.
point?"
I think it was Lenin because he didn't say
Okay,
Stalin.
right.
Or
Well,
sorry, he
Stalin
didn't
wouldn't have
say.
taken office for
Yeah,
another 10 to 15 years at that point.
yeah.
But anyway, so
He
like
didn't
he's
say him. It would have been Lenin, I think.
yeah. And then he goes, "Well, he lived a long time ago, Your Majesty." But like there was already this so there's an interest on Puyi's part, and I wonder if they were like, well, let's bring in a tutor, teach him a little bit, keep him happy while we still just do what we've always done. Like we'll and then because as soon as he starts, showing like being like, hey, this kid needs glasses, this kid needs that, they're like, we will run you the fuck out of here. And
Yeah.
like they're like, you were supposed to come in here and just kind of appease him. That's what I got the vibe from, was like they were like,
Oh.
let's keep him happy in his prison essentially, so that we can all keep making our money and we can all are stealing our stuff and doing all the things we want to do. We get to keep the cushy life we've lived because he is complacent and he's learning like about the he's getting to see, about American girls doing, the whatever the dance was that he said he wanted his wife to know how to do.
Uh-huh.
So I got the feeling that they basically brought in Johnston as like a tutor, that to be like a stooge essentially, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I will teach him, but
He was more of a
I'm
use.
not playing your fucking game."
Right. So what I think happened was Johnston Johnston did take a genuine like care to Puyi,
Yeah,
and he saw that he was a real person that wasn't just a benevolent fool dictator. Like, no,
yeah,
he kind of realized, no, this is a real human. And also Johnston does allude to understanding that this kid is a child king. Like he is so far removed from reality of existence that there's a lot of things he never experienced. And I think that Johnston maybe came in as like a political job, but then took much more of a liking, and we clearly hear about that during Puyi's writings. That Johnston, oh, was he kidnapped? Well, then why did they know to pack his bags the day before he was kidnapped? You know, so
yeah,
so Johnston, and then Puyi also starts to become more understanding of Johnston and start to trust him more.
yeah.
So that Puyi is not a lot of films, especially from the 70s and 80s and somewhat early 90s. The films about history, especially about wet Eastern history, they always depicted the main titular character as this non-trusting, I don't like outsiders, we do it our way kind of
Right.
mentality. Who he never really had that. He was
Oh,
always
you're right.
super curious about the outside, but Johnston's influence was like the first time that I really felt that happening.
So
Because, and
I
this is
agree with
clearly,
you. Oh,
hold
sorry.
on, hold on, this is clearly part of a time, is he was so in power, there was never a challenge to his authority. So there was never a time he had to stand up and say, this is the way we do things. Like that never happened. And then as soon as Gray Tuxedo,
Yeah,
Johnston comes in, like it starts to make a cut into that into that feeling of we're untouchable. And that's when they finally had to push back on things because no one pushed
hmm,
back on them otherwise. If I want to breastfeed at 10
yeah,
years old, I'm going to. If I want to have 50 dishes made, so one official eunuch who tastes all my food has to make sure which one's perfect and not poison. Like that is the excess in which they
yeah.
lived. And Johnston never pushed it away, always embraced it. And then Puyi was the one who like slowly moved towards the edge with Johnston and then became his like confidant.
Yeah. So I somewhat agree with you. I Okay, you look like you were frozen for a second. So I agree with you, but in the sense that like Johnston definitely brings in some change indirectly,
He
and
does.
but I also think that like Puyi is again a reflection of China in this sense of the balance of wanting modernization and wanting tradition, and we see that throughout the
Yeah.
movie, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
color is emblematic of that
It
too, right?
serves that.
Because
Yep.
red is an important color in Chinese culture at the beginning of the movie, and but it also is in like in the shoulder straps of the communists, and
Epaulets.
so yeah, that epaulet. Yeah, I don't know anything about military uniforms, but like so it's in this like, oh, we're reforming or updating or whatever, we're influencing, we're changing, but we're keeping some traditional colors. And I mean,
Mao's book
communism.
was red.
I was gonna say
Perfect example.
communism.
Mao's book was red. Like
Right.
it's purposeful.
Right. So there is that like balance and push and pull, and we see that in Puyi just as much, because while I think that Johnston does bring in, I think Johnston brings in the freedom of the change more than the desire for the change, because there's so much on those initial meetings.
Oh.
Because even when Johnston has the bicycle, which I think is like the first or second time he meets him, he goes, "My doctors said that I'm not allowed to ride," which means he asked, he wanted a bicycle.
Mhm.
And Johnston goes, "Nonsense," and like, and that's
Nonsense. And then rides it around. Yep.
right, and
And he
and
does
shows
it
him
in
how to ride.
such a you're gonna do this way. Like after he
Yeah,
gets off, he kind of like he
right,
pushes it towards the concrete like this, like, Steve,
yeah.
it's
Well,
okay. It was a
I don't know.
welcoming thing. I like how you framed that. He
I
didn't
don't know that.
force the change, he offered it, and Puyi took.
I also think that Johnston's approach, from the little bit that we see of it, is so when I was a kid, my parents made it very clear to me, like, if you don't want to hang out with somebody, if like someone, like you have a friend or whatever that they're doing something that you don't want to do, and not like necessarily like they're going to do something bad, but like, like I had a friend that would made me, that was a little weird, and it took us a little while to become friends, and he would call my house and be like, "Do you want to come over and play video games?" Nothing bad. And then I would just my if I would ask my parents while, in the other room, and they'd be like, "If you want to go, you can go, but if you don't want to, you could tell them you're not allowed to. Like, you can make us the bad guy. You could say we're doing something else. Like, you can." And parents giving their kids that permission to have that little bit of out, and with all of these people around him, he needed that permission, because he'd ask and then they would deny. And I think that's like why Johnston is so okay with literally all of the trappings of it, is because he's like, okay, but when he wants something else, I will just gently, and I will just make it seem like I'm the one who's bringing the bicycle to him to present it, and like I think you need to do this. I think you need to try this as part of your lessons. Like, because he doesn't give him the option. He's like, "You're going to do this," but like it's very
Uh-huh.
clear that Puyi wants to do it, and so I think that
That
Johnston
is
kind
a
of comes in as,
fantastic. Oh, wow. Okay. I see it. I'm
yeah,
playing scenes back. I see it. And in the inverse of that, Johnston never asks for special Western treatment.
mm-hmm,
So he doesn't have Western dishes made for him.
nope,
He doesn't like not take the gifts like when they gave him the hat, right?
right,
He starts wearing it all the time. Like
yep,
he was always in that classic British way, strongly suggesting but never forcing, and then accepting the other parts of the culture as this is
yeah.
the way I live now.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
The only
fantastic.
time that we see
That's a
him be
good take.
forceful, the only time that we see him be forceful is, and it's not in front of Puyi, is after they've had the glasses conversation, the spectacles conversation, and he's talking to the Grand Chamberlain or something. I forget what it was, Chamberlain, Lord Chamberlain, something like that. Like
Yeah.
basically the guy who's he's the person who runs the operations for the Forbidden City, and he's gonna get the spectacles or he'll go blind. And there's like, well, that's a little more change than we're ready for. And he goes, well, then I could just leave. And he's like, yeah, I think that it
He
might be
straight
time for you to
threatens
leave.
leaving.
And he
Yep.
goes, well, if I leave, I'm gonna feel obligated to publish what I've found, which is that
Every
the
paper will hear
emperor
this.
the emperor is really a prisoner in this fortress, and that you guys are using it. And he like runs down the numbers of like
Yep.
30,000 chickens a day, and this, like, these are the
Yep.
things that are being, he's like, "Oh, you know how to do accounting really well," and he's like,
I
"Yeah,
love
I
that. Yeah. Oh, you're an accountant.
do." That scene
I
was,
might have to squeal if you
yeah,
don't let him get glasses.
yeah,
How
and
inconsequential does this seem now?
yeah. So they give him glasses, and then we still see like the
The wives,
the emperor. What do they call the empresses? The empress
dowagers.
empress regents or something. Oh, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
I thought it was dowagers.
At one point they say dowagers. At another point they say regents, like or some other word like that. They're
Those are
the wives of the
Are
previous
they the
emperors.
wives of the previous emperors? Then how are they all still alive? That's the
Well,
part I wasn't. That's the part I couldn't tell, because if these are previous emperors that have all passed away, how are all of these women like near the same age? So are they
it could be one
emperors
or
of
two
other
emperors.
provinces?
Well, it's
Oh,
also
because they
because
all
they're
took
allowed
multiple wives.
multiple wives. Like we don't
Good
see
point.
much of it in this, but Puyi ends up having 5 wives by the end of his life.
2 that we see, but 5 in
Yeah,
total.
yeah. So like this is not a big deal for them to have
No, good
multiple
point. Okay.
wives. So that's how I took it. And I also think like there's the main wife, and then like there's also like essentially concubine. Like
That's what
the
I
what?
called it too. I called it a
Well,
concubine. Yeah.
there was definitely the use of the word concubine a couple of times, but then there was other. There's a lot of interchangeable terminology that I am not that familiar. I mean, I know of, but I don't really know that much detail of. So anyway, that was. So like those wives are all like, well, he shouldn't be wearing glasses, and they're like, well, unfortunately, we just got threatened, and we don't want to lose our fancy spot. So,
I
all right,
mean,
we ready?
glasses or life on the outside? You pick. Oh,
Yeah,
glasses? Okay.
yeah. My hot take is that I think that they did a really good job of making Puyi a really rounded character, but you don't know it until basically the end of the movie. Like
Yeah, I can agree with that.
he feels pretty two-dimensional, and then they really round it out at the end in a way that retroactively goes back and rounds a lot of it out. Like what we see is like we see him as the kid who's kind of a brat, and then we see him as the kid who is kind of a brat but also realizes the predicament he's in, and you're kind of like, well, I understand this. And even through his 20s, and like, when he's living in uh Tengsen or Tengchen or what, I forget the name of that city, and with his 2 wives, and they're living
In
very.
Japan.
No, that's China.
Oh, yeah. They're living in like political exile, but it is like the
Yeah,
biggest, swankiest palace. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And it looks like every like 1920s like flapper party nightclub that you've ever seen, like in a
it totally
swing,
does.
and when we see him in that scene, you're like, oh, like when his second wife asks for the divorce, I'm like, oh, he seems to have moved on, like, and you're like, oh no, he's still the brat. Like we still see that. And then like every time we start to see like something that makes you think like, oh, he's grown up, even in prison, we're like, okay, he's a different guy now. And then we see them looking through the peephole where they're tying his shoes for him, and he's like, you didn't put toothpaste on my
You didn't
toothbrush.
put, yeah,
and
he's
and
still
he's
such
being
a brat.
and at that point he's older than he's pushing 50 years old, right? He's
And he
at that
still like
point. And
can't put toothpaste on his toothbrush.
right,
Like
right.
tooth
And
powder is too much
no,
work for him.
he refuses. Like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
so like you see, and you're like, okay. And so I really, I think that they really lead you to that like sense of like, oh, this guy isn't capable of change. This guy isn't capable of 3 dimensions and growing.
Yeah.
And like we've seen this like 2.25 dimensions, and then we see him kind of watch that reel of all the terrible things Japan did
Yes. Oh my gosh.
to the people of China, that he was kind of kept away from, because also he was kind of in that like useful puppet emperor hideaway essentially in Mantua, which was Manchuria, or
Hmm.
Manchugo, or so, I forget what they call it. Because that's the other thing, is a lot of things change names in the movie. Even like Puyi at one point is Henry, and his wife is Elizabeth, because they're like
Yeah.
westernizing. So like there's a lot of name changing here between places and things. But he's in that like, I'm the emperor of the Northeast, or now I guess they call it Northeast. But it was Manchuria at one point. That's where he was from, where his people are from. His
Hmm.
family is from originally. And while he's there, he's allowing Japan a lot of what they want, and he is just like, I'm trying to hold this. he's a useful idiot, right? And he's a puppet. He probably wasn't fully aware, including like the guard when he confesses, the governor, when he confesses, the governor goes, "There's no way you could have known this part." And he
Yeah.
goes, "I allowed it to happen."
Yep.
Like, and because
He
he,
finally figured out that he had done all these bad things and there's no
yeah,
way he can defend against it.
right,
And you're right. When he saw that film, he became immediately aware of all the things that the government
yeah,
around him made him the figurehead of for essentially their own gain, not
yeah,
necessarily his. Oh, because he's in a prison right now. But all
right,
these
right,
bad things happened. All these chemical weapons were tested. All of
yeah.
these people
And they
were
show body.
starved. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they show, and I would imagine that's all real news footage that's edited in there, not. I mean, it looked like real news footage.
It did.
Doesn't, and so like it is. I think that they did a really good job with like, because I think that even though there's this brattiness, this spoiled nature to him throughout most of that, I still do believe that like when he's trying to be emperor, there is a level of trying to uphold that tradition, uphold
Yeah.
all that he was raised with. So I don't think it's entirely selfish. Um,
No, no, I'll agree with that.
I think that he thinks what he's doing is the right thing and happens to be the thing that makes him like opulent and spoiled also. Um, but when he finally realizes how much damage he allowed to happen to what he
He
still sees as
internalized it
his
at that point.
people, yeah. And so like that growth is really interesting, because I think like if I went back and watched it again right now, I would be like, oh yeah, he does make this decision for this reason, and like there is, it's like that retroactive, like I made everything 3D by, that's essentially the last 5 minutes of the movie, right? Like
Reverse shame.
yeah, that last 5 to 10 minutes of the movie is like all of his redemption and change and growth that he gets is there, and it does kind of retroactively give new color and new context to the
Yeah.
rest of his character.
So I'm with you on that hot take. I'm going to entirely endorse it because there are like while you were discussing that, they're like, oh yeah, that all did happen because he gets up and leaves the room while they're showing that film in prison because they're trying to shame the Chinese people because they're they're not prisoners, they're political criminals, war
Yeah,
criminals essentially. All of these people, like he's the only one that gets up and walks out of the room. And all the other people watching that film are so just shocked by what they're seeing that they didn't see him leave the room. And then at one
yeah,
point, the people sitting in front like look behind me like, "Oh shit, Puyi's gone. Oh shit!" Like that's
yeah.
when I think all the prisoners even real. I mean, they knew who he was, but they realized
Hmm.
like how much he understood and didn't stand up and say, "But I did it for the right thing." No, at that point, he's like, "Oh shit, I did that, or at least I
Hmm.
am responsible for not stopping
Right.
that."
Right. And
So
even when
from
he gets up, you have that sense of like, is this going to be, because we did see with the divorce, like he just calmly reacts for at first,
yeah,
and then he flips out, and all those other moments where you think like, oh, he's grown. In this moment, like they've led us to believe that like he's not capable, and he stands up, and I'm like, oh, he is like, I'm not going to listen to this shit.
yeah,
And no, that's the thing that finally hits him.
true.
And it really, really does a good job of showing that.
It does. So I thought of a hot take other than my other one, so I'm going to give two. My
Okay.
first one is, you know how you were talking about how like bratty and entitled the members of this royal family are?
Yeah.
What?
Almost exclusively him though, because his brother
Well,
doesn't
yeah.
really have the opportunity, because his brother is like,
Puche
yeah,
doesn't really, yeah, Puche
yeah.
is almost like a commoner in comparison.
Hmm.
So, how old during that party that they had at the big palace, the flapper party? How old do you think his wife that they escorted away was? Like 30s?
Is that 1931 is what they said, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay, so he was born in 1906, and they mention that she is older than him. I think she's about 2 years older than him.
Okay.
Because they kind of, when you remember, he goes, she's old, she's 17, and
I know. I remember that one when they're showing the
I got the
pictures.
feeling he's 15, right? Like, I get the
Yeah.
feeling he's, well, also, it's the same actress, but that's still the teenage boy version of it. Like, but the actress, so she's like, the actress is 26, playing a 17-year-old at that point, and then playing older because she plays it the whole way through.
Yeah.
And he is a different kid, which also made me uncomfortable. Like, there was a lot of the, like, not quite sex, but sex adjacent stuff made me uncomfortable
Do you mean when they're all
because
three in the bed rolling around? That one?
not that one so much, because I think that's older Puyi at that point. Like, that's
Okay.
the same guy. But no, like when the 10-year-old is breastfeeding, it's not, I mean, that is uncomfortable enough to watch, right? But like he caresses her breasts, and then he like leans in and he's rubbing her side while he's doing it. And then he even says later on, like, she's not my wet nurse, she's my everything, or my love, or
My
something. I forget.
butterfly.
My
She is my
butterfly.
butterfly. Yep.
And it's like, okay, like I get it. So like
Armo. She's my
I'm not
butterfly.
one
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people who wants to deny that that kids, as they go through puberty, have sexual urges. Like, I'm not going to be like that, but I do think that it is really difficult to be moral in the depiction of it. Meaning,
Yeah.
like, when you're hiring kid actors, like, yeah, did that probably happen that way? Sure, but that kid actor is still like 10 to 12 years old, and do we need
Right.
to
This is
put
the
that kid
80s and
actor
he's
through
like,
that?
right.
Right? Like,
This is
that
late
kid's like,
80s and he's actively suckling on like a 30-year-old woman's breast. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. And so, like, like, to me, there is like, did we need to see that? Could we have edited around that? Like, that's where I get
Or stop the shot
uncomfortable.
about here, like
Right,
like on
right.
her,
And
like cut it off at the
yeah,
clavicle and just
yeah.
we know what's
And then
going on. Thanks,
and then we
Bertolucci.
a little less uncomfortable, but still uncomfortable, is when he's like that, their wedding night essentially, and it's the 15-year-old actor boy and the 26, 27-year-old actress who is going to be playing the wife the whole movie through, and they're kissing,
Yep.
and like, it is, and there's lots of times we've unfortunately seen like adults kiss children in romantic ways in movies, like like the newer versions of Lolita, or Blank Check. Do you remember Blank
Blank
Check
check, yeah.
from being a kid? There's
Yep.
that, like, the lady that was like, we probably all thought we're hot and we're all that kid's age, but like, ew,
Not okay.
now. And like, so like, this scene was like, okay, she's 26, 27. The kid probably is genuinely 15, 16. And she's not fully topless, but like, they're basically like, it's like they're draped over. It's not like they're held in, and they're making out, and she's kissing him all over, and they're kissing. I was like, again, I'm not like a prude, but I just think, like, when it comes to depicting it, you have to be way more careful, because you could re-victimize actors.
Sure you could.
And so, like, I am always weary of it, of that kind of depiction, and this movie was not an exception. And luckily, it was just those two scenes really that made me uncomfortable. Because I don't mind like, when the two adult women are, one's sucking the other one's toes. Like, well, they're adult women.
It's kind of hot.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, morally, filming that is not necessarily the same issue. And even
Yeah.
when, like, they're all in under the blankets and stuff, in the threesome part, it's like they're all adults. Like, I don't mind it.
Oh,
And
you mean
and
just
while
before fire is set to part of the palace because they got caught? You mean that?
yeah, yeah. So
So
anyway,
all of that was to just get the age of her, audience. So the age of the girl at the party in 1931.
Hmm.
I expect that some of these subjects of the royal palace are just as much of a brat as he is, because she ate the flowers to get the attention of people.
Yeah.
Like, at first, when she started doing that, I looked at my wife and I said, "Is she trying to? are those poisonous? Is she trying to kill herself? Like, that's actually the first thing I thought.
That
And
that
then when
is that is what I
everybody
thought.
like, okay, when everybody started looking at her doing it and didn't stop her, specifically the camera dude, who is the Manchurian Film Institute something, right? He
Yeah,
pans like right to her, and I'm like, well, they're clearly not stopping her. By the way,
yeah,
I swear to you that the Manchurian Film thing was actually a way to document blackmail on the Chinese by the Japanese
sure.
because it's going to seem like this big glitzy entertainment Chinese Hollywood thing, but is it
Yeah,
really just so we can film the girl eating flowers and look crazy? Yeah, probably.
yeah,
So I think they're just as bratty because she's a grown ass adult. And that's the way that she's getting the attention of people, specifically Puyi, is to eat fucking flowers. And by the way, quick cinematography love. The mirror in that scene is
it
fantastic. Like
it
she's
was a
there in the mirror, what like, and we're never really sure, are we looking at her reflection or are we
mhm,
looking at her? And then Puyi comes out of a side and it's actually his reflection at first till he sits down. And
yeah,
then we're filming both of them straight on. It's a two shot. But then at first it's like this weird 2.5, 3 shot because he's over here in the reflection. And by then
yeah.
we moved away from her reflection into looking straight at her. And I just realized there's a lot of mirror use in this film.
A lot of
The
mirror
women,
use. Yep.
I didn't even, okay, that's fantastic. Thank you, Bertolucci. So for me, that's one of my hot takes is the rest. Puyi is obviously the spoiled brat, child king. But all of these women that are accessories to this, for example, all those princesses, I bet you are just as much as spoiled brats. I bet you every one of them is a Chinese Miss Piggy. Every freaking one of them is just totally self absorbed, never had a real care in the world, and never has to. My genuine hot take that I wrote down is the most emotionally, I'm just going to read it straight up. The most emotionally devastating moments in this film are often the loudest scenes, but only ones where the palette just quietly drains or cools and the real sound is outside.
Hmm.
So, for example, I think it was about halfway through the film, you hear all the gunshots and the bombs going off outside the
Hmm.
Forbidden City, and none of
Yeah.
them are stopping.
I
They're
think
just
that.
carrying on like normal. Like they know it's there. They're not fully
Yeah.
ignoring it, but they didn't like put everything down and go, we need to go hide. No, they don't even care. There's literal
So
war going on outside. And they're like, nah, let's keep playing tennis. You know?
I think that adds to two things. It adds to that sense of your isolation of
Yeah.
Puyi's
It pushes
isolation.
that.
It pushes that, but it also pushes the sense that like he has some justification in what he's doing later, trying to pull shit together.
Yeah.
Because he even asks at one point, "Is it true that they're beheading people?" And they're like, "Yes, Your Majesty, they're
Yes, Your
beheading
Majesty.
people." And so when he goes and he's like, so when he goes, I'm gonna in the 20s when he's like, I'm going to be emperor again, I'm going to fix this. Like, I think there is that lends to that sense of, well, I'm sure he wants the ego boost of being emperor again. He also does want
Yeah.
to like do what he thinks is the right thing, and he's seen these are the bad guys, and the Japanese will help me take take this down a notch of
Hmm.
against these bad guys. And then when he sees later on in prison the film of what happened under the Japanese, he goes, "Oh, I was just aiding and abetting a different awful thing." And so like while I thought I was protecting from something where people were being beheaded, they were actually like melting people with chemical weapons and doing this other
Dropping bombs
terrible.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
I think that like kind
that
of does help build out that and flesh out that like motivation. But again,
it,
it takes so long to pay off that you're like, I don't even like connect the two necessarily, because it's I'm
so
a little kid, I'm a
yeah.
14-year-old boy or 15-year-old boy, and then I'm a 50 something or I'm 50 years old and I'm dealing with the repercussions, and all in between, we don't see that much references to that, you know?
It's always those faint noises on the outside,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
him saying, "Oh, are they doing that?" "Yes, Your Majesty."
Yeah.
"Well, that stinks. I'm gonna go play hoop." Like, yeah, it very much was that. So I just thought of something when I was watching when I was watching the scene of them in the prison showing that film. Did that frame any of the World War II era Asian conflict things differently for you? Because as an American, we're taught big bad Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor.
Hmm.
Like that's what we remember from school. But then, yeah, China
Yeah.
didn't like sit idle by and let it happen. They aided them, whether willingly or
I always,
unwillingly. They
I
aided
knew
them.
that. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't know about them aiding them. I knew that there was this really conflicted history between the two, but I didn't know much about it. Um,
I was
I,
unaware that it wasn't always this. Like they're
yeah.
always fighting. I wasn't aware, but there was like an agreement
Well,
there, and then
I,
that's what like Pearl
I
Harbor.
don't think I think you're overplaying to an extent that agreement because I think that the Manchukuo or whatever that
Manchukuo.
Manchuria became
Yeah.
Manchukuo, um, I think that is essentially, you know, like maybe a big fraction. It might be like New England is to
Yeah,
the
so the
U.S.
Japanese were the big baddie here. Like I
Right,
understand that they were putting
right,
they were turning the screws on the Chinese because they saw them as weaker, less intelligent, less
yeah,
advanced country, and they exploited that by using their weapons, using their people, using their political influence and their literal
yeah,
geography to like expand their empire. But
right.
I like again,
I
history, I kind of paid attention, but didn't in school, at least for Asian history. I know more about it now than I did when I was younger.
yeah,
I didn't really understand the level at which the Japanese had moved to a democracy where they like the people knew what was going on, including the people in the government. And then you have this Puyi character that, as a 10-year-old, was massacring millions, but didn't know he was doing it. And then when he was told he was doing it, he went and played mahjong. He just
no,
went and like, oh, I'm gonna go take a nap. Like
he
it what
wasn't
he
doing that. No,
knew
no, that
responsible,
no, he was responsible for
responsible.
what happened during the war. He wasn't
Yeah,
responsible for
yeah.
the other
Sorry,
stuff. The other
sorry.
stuff
Yeah.
was essentially he was usurped, and they just allowed him to survive as a symbol.
That's more
And
sorry. That's
and
more what I
like, but
meant. He was given a pass. Yeah.
he was given no power though. Like he had
Yeah.
literally no authority or power. He was emperor in name only, and it was
Yeah.
just to kind of like you know, to be like, hey, we're not taking away all your traditions. And that was done with him so many times, including when he's in the communist camp. They use him as like they don't execute him. They reform him as the ultimate
Oh,
example
yeah, good
that it can
point.
be done. Like he is a pawn. The only time he's more than a pawn really is in when he's working with Japan, which he's still a pawn, but he's like a little more willing of a pawn. But I just don't think he
Well, they
had that
gave
much
him a
power.
lush lifestyle. I mean, you saw what Japan put him up
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah. But I also think that like they didn't have control over the whole of China. They had control over this section, and we're hoping to expand it.
Basically the spot adjacent to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So for me, I was kind of unaware that that's how strong of an influence that those two countries had in their conflict and their conflict with the rest of the world.
yeah,
But also like sound I know is in our focus, but I'm telling you, the most chilling scene to me, and actually I turned it up and rewound it because I actually watched it here in the theater rather than upstairs with my headphones on because I watched it with my wife. And when they're playing tennis, and Mr. Johnston's the referee, which I thought was great that the British dude's the referee.
yeah,
But like he's Puyi is in the most Western of Western outfits. The
for a little while they
collegiate
make him look
thing, the
like
shorts, like
they make him look like Gregory Peck almost.
yeah,
Like
yeah, he does. He does.
like
Yes.
he gives off a Gregory Peck vibe, like Atticus Finch towards the beginning of the movie, like vibe that entire period, from there even through the like when they're at the party, the swanky party, that they have to leave, like he's singing American hits and stuff, and
Oh,
but
with the band in
yeah,
blackface.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
anyway, so
I
hold
want to
on.
say
Stop. Don't do this to me. I need you a cinematographer. No, I'm kidding. So like that scene when they're playing tennis. What was that? I saw that. um,
I was
during that
thinking not
scene,
on this podcast, you're not.
ooh, slapping me around. So like you hear like the that army, the PRC army marching into the Forbidden City. And
Mhm,
the audio is so well balanced here because, well, I mean, they had the gift of the actual location to film in. So this probably
mhm.
wasn't like audio mastering or trickery. It probably was just
Oh
literally well
yeah.
mic'd. It was just well
Well, and
mic'd. But there, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and they have the ability, like it's well mic'd, but it's also probably pretty quiet from outside sound. Like when you think about the individual when he's running down the alleyway in the Forbidden City, and you hear his feet, it's so clean, and like it could very well be Foley, but it also could just be that they're in an alleyway that is in the Forbidden City that that's blocked by
One,
10 walls and 3 acres on either side of space between them and other humans. It's
I mean,
essentially like the
yeah.
world's biggest backlot.
When you've got 178 acres,
Yeah.
you've got space. So,
Hmm.
so like they come, and it just gets like the level, the loudness is so fantastic as it just gets the intensity of this huge PRC army just getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And then they come down the stairs into the courtyard where they're playing tennis. And Puyi is big dick, not scared, doesn't care, wouldn't even be afraid of them.
Hmm.
And like I'm getting chills right now because it's so powerful that he just doesn't give a shit. And then Johnston says, it's time to go, Your Majesty. And he just walks through with their weapons like nearly pointed at him with
Yeah.
bayonets. And he just like nearly slaps the bayonets away with his bare hand and just walks right through there up the stairs to go pack his trunk. Like
Yeah.
that is the biggest big dick swing energy. He's like, I don't fucking care. You're literally able to shoot me right here and lay my blood out on the court. I don't care. I'm the king. Do up the stairs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, color was fantastic, and so much of the temperature, the temperature of the scene changes with the temperature of the color. But just the way that the Forbidden City was used, it didn't play a character the way France played a character in Ratatouille, but it plays as the world's perfect backlot. You get 178 acres to, well, at that time it probably wasn't that big, but that's how big it was during his. It was 178 acres during Puyi's rule, but it probably wasn't that big in 1987 because hadn't China taken some of that back as part of the city? I think.
Yes.
Okay,
I
because the
think I
Forbidden
think you're
City
right.
literally is still there, but it's not the
Yeah.
178 it used to be at that
Yeah.
time, I don't think. Okay. So I think we are ready
It used to be
for
a city, now it's more of a palace. Like I think
correct.
yeah,
Yes. Do you recommend this film?
I do. I think that this is one of those movies where it's a slow burn. So like there is a
Yeah.
chance that if you're not in the right headspace, or you're like easily gonna walk away from a movie before you might not get out all of it out of it. I would say just you got to stick with it.
Yeah,
Um,
you do.
it, it it is at no point is it boring, but it's absolutely like a slow burn where you're like, oh, this is just pretty, or and it takes a little while to really like captivate, but it's worth it. What about you?
I agree with that entirely. There are a lot of scenarios where it didn't drag, it didn't rush, but it felt like there was a buildup for something that you hadn't seen yet. And this movie earned its Best Picture award by setting up beats and setting up moments that weren't like obvious immediate payoffs for less scrupulous audiences,
Yeah.
or or stupid slapsticky jokes that like any idiot can laugh at. Like it always was more. I mean, again, Mrs. Bertolucci, it was built more for a cultured film audience. And in perfect example of my wife, who got the same public education that you and I did here in the US, it had the same it had the same kind of feeling that you already mentioned it, A Special Day. Do you need to know a lot about the history to think A Special Day is a good film?
No.
No. In this film, is it less of a film because you don't know, like you and I did, about all of the details of the Asian conflict during World War II? No.
No,
It's a
if
good film.
anything,
It's a cool ass film on its own. So
yeah,
yes,
and
I
if
can
if
recommend it.
anything, sometimes these kind of movies launch you off onto, oh, I want to learn more about that. And
And
like,
I do now.
yeah.
Yes. It's like,
And
like
same
I'm gonna go
things.
find
Yeah.
YouTube like Vidocs about this because I want to watch more about it, you know?
Yeah. So rating. We spoiler alert, we both rated it the same on both of our categories.
And we
But for
haven't, I don't think we've ever done this.
I think we did once before. I feel like we
Yeah, if it was ever it's once
the Royal
before we agreed exact.
Tenenbaums.
Okay.
I think that might be it.
I'm trying to do conditional
Oh,
formatting so it highlights it for us.
Partenope.
Oh, Parts and Open we did too. So there's 3 in total.
I think so.
Actually, this had the same ratings as Parts and Ope. If we're going to be serious, it had the
Yeah.
exact same. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So let's talk about
So
it. So, Mike, go
fun and
first.
watchability. We both gave it a 7.
Yep.
I will say that I gave it a 7 because it's like I said, it's a slow burn. It's not like this is not like, oh, I'm gonna put it on if I'm scrolling, and like I'm just gonna be like, yes, let's go. Let's sit here and watch the whole way through. But it is definitely worth watching. And if I saw this in theaters or another situation in which there was no distractions, I'd be hooked the whole time. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so and other than like that little bit of makeup issue that Alex has, there isn't a whole lot that is like that takes you out of it, right? Like it's pretty. You're like, and it's also it has this benefit of being, there's these moments in human history that are like really weirdly unique
Yeah.
that a lot of them are probably lost because they didn't get documented properly for whatever reason. And this one happens to have been documented because of the weirdness of it for, with him having to write his confession down and it becoming an autobiography. Like this could easily, but from that human spectacle, this is like and I mean this in the best possible way. This is like reading a cool Wikipedia page when you're like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's cool. That's weird that
I like
happened.
that.
Like, like there's like these moments of history where you're like, this is weird that this happened. And like, like it's not like nothing in individually is that weird, but the congruence of it all is weird. So like it is like, it's a good like dive into this weird, little situation. It is in that way, like you said, like watching like a doc or like where you're like, oh yeah, this really just captivated my interest because of the story. And then it's visually stunning. It is it's the audio is great. There's a lot going on those levels as well, which I think makes it really work from a watchability standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm the same reason it's a 7 for me because the color plays. And the reason it's not higher is because I don't have the same love for older films because I did not grow up watching them the way Mike did. So my love of film is much more technical prowess and much more editing and what's the word I'm thinking of? Like cinema craft, film craft prowess. Like that's the stuff I like to see in modern films. Whereas
Hmm.
older films, if the story doesn't hit, I'm thinking, eh. So for me, it's a 7 because of the length. You can't just sit down and watch this, but it's also a 7 because
Well,
this
it's
is
not that
again,
long. It's
well,
it
okay,
if you are, it's not one of those movies that would have had an
it's not
intermission in a
feature
theater.
90
It's what
minutes.
it's 2.5,
Yeah.
which when you're talking, it's actually probably I think it's the shortest of the four films we're going to talk about this month. It's
Okay, good point.
definitely shorter than Lawrence of Arabia. It's definitely shorter than Titanic, and I think Oppenheimer's over 3 hours. This is the only one under 3 hours this month. Um, so like I get it, like and you know. People, I always laugh because people who love Titanic bitch about the length of every other fucking movie, right? Because
You
because
love Titanic because it hooked you. That's when a good film is a long film, and a long
well,
film is a good film. Like,
time is relative, exactly. So like to me this didn't feel like that long, except for the fact
no.
that like it was tough with the dog squeak toy. um but I won't hold that against Bertolucci. uh anyway, so
So it's a 7 for me because it's not as easy to just throw on.
yeah,
And it's not something you can perfect. The reason this is a 7 is because it's not a film you can appreciate in passing. You
yeah,
must be engaged to
yeah,
understand its gravity and why it swings where it does. So
absolutely, yeah.
it's a
This
9
is,
for the same reasons in
yeah,
quality. Like this
yeah,
is a 9 because it is that old. So 9 for me because it's that old film that has film craft, that has sound, that has color. And because I'm a technical person, I know what it took to do that with real film. I
yes,
know what you had to do with limited budget and equipment to make something this epic and sprawling and just have this sense of scale. I know
yeah.
what it took.
Yes, yeah, and you know, you talk about old film. This comes out in the height of the '80s, and I don't think the '80s as old the way you're talking about, but I think of '80s as the weakest decade of movies on a whole bunch of levels. And one of
I'm
them
seeing a
is
technology weak is
yeah, yeah.
is
Well,
what I
one of
mean,
them is
or
techno.
limited.
One of them is that. One of them is if you go watch a lot of, and maybe it's very possible that this is how films of that time when VHS was brand new were being adapted or being transferred. It's very possible that that's the problem I'm thinking of in my
Oh,
head.
you mean analog to
There,
analog, not digital to analog kind of thing?
right.
Okay.
Well, also VHS has that weirdness like of like video that's the original video format, not film format, right? And so like there is a lot of, even if you okay, you look at the opening credits of this movie, that's what I'm talking about, where
Oh,
it feels like straight to, like VHS, like like it
the way they
that
fade in and out, it feels grainy
yeah.
and organic and not clean. Yet
It
no, I
feels like
can see that.
VHS.
Yeah,
But a lot of '80s movies have that the whole way through. As soon as that opening credits is over,
it
it feels
stops.
like you're
Yeah.
watching film. And so, like to me, that is another thing that stands out about this movie is that like it was, and I'm sure if I went back and watched all the best pictures from that decade, they were probably, especially when you talk about best cinematography, they were probably given cleaner, or they've been re-released on, remastered or whatever. And so maybe that is what I'm talking about, is like when you think about other movies that maybe aren't as big a deal from the '80s that people love, you're like, oh, that feels very '80s, and it doesn't have to be about the '80s to feel very '80s, right? Like, and so
Well,
this
so
doesn't.
we had anamorphic lenses.
Yeah.
We had all analog film. So like, and also the reason it's a 9 for me, and you'll likely agree, is because all of that technology isn't there to do the lifting
Hmm.
that writing, cinematography, and acting can
Yeah.
be replaced by in modern films. If you made The Matrix in the 80s, it might have sucked. But
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was made in the early 2000s, it is a technical masterpiece that set
Yeah.
off multiple like quotable phrases in video games, television, and movies in the future, bullet time being one of them. That
Yeah.
whole idea of a circle of cameras that are mechanically fired to get a scene, like that wasn't around
Yeah.
until it got done. So this film had to stand alone. It had to stand on Bertolucci's shoulders.
Yeah.
There's my list.
All right.
Bertolucci's shoulders.
We agreed on Lawrence of Arabia, right, for next week. We originally wanted to do it in chronological order, and then we realized that we weren't 100% sure on Lawrence of Arabia when we announced this movie.
Was that
So
because of where we can watch it?
yeah, but you
Okay,
said
let
that we
me.
can watch it if we get the what do you call it,
Yeah, there's a
the
there's a 7 day
trial
trial
of
that's not Sony Home whatever or not
yeah, yeah,
Moviesphere Plus that we did
yeah,
for the
yeah.
other one. Yeah,
So yeah, so next week join us for Lawrence of Arabia. Again, it won best cinematography, it won best picture, and I put down, and you can correct me if you don't like this, but I think you're going to agree with me. I put down that we should cover the scale and depth of field in this movie, because even though
it's it's like
it's
5 miles deep. It's huge.
yeah, it's just it's that, and I also think you're talking about it was shot on like a super specific format, and like
Yeah.
it's I think
So
that you need
my technical boner is gonna love this because of how
oh,
much because of how much work was done in the 60s to make this what it was. It
yes,
was possibly their Matrix of that era because it
yeah,
was so just big in the tech that it used, which
yeah,
is one of the reasons we should probably watch F1. And I've seen it. Did you?
yeah. We're going to talk
It-
about it on the
so
Best Picture
you
episode.
did see F1 in theaters or at home?
I saw it on a home theater at my father-in-law's.
Okay, that'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do.
But we could talk about that on our Best Picture episode, which we'll
Coming
talk,
up, guys.
which actually will be available definitely for
There's a
patrons.
patron pack for that, isn't there?
There is. Well, it'll be available for patrons by the time Lawrence of Arabia comes out for sure. Not by the time this episode comes out. Nope, I'm wrong on that. But we'll be recording the
After
day. I think we're
Lawrence. Yeah, after Lawrence of
yeah,
Arabia.
yeah. So, yeah, so look out for that. That's going to be in a bonus episode this month. We will release it for patrons, and then we'll probably release it the morning of the Oscars so that you can watch it before you watch the Oscars.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lawrence of Arabia next week, and then we're going to wrap up. We're going to keep going with Titanic and Oppenheimer. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. It really helps us to do this, and we love doing it, and we hope that you're enjoying it. Talk to us about in the comments about whatever you thought about this movie. Watch ahead. That's why we want to tell you what we're going to watch next week and the week after, so that you can watch ahead and engage with us. Anyway, we would love to have you talk to us about about that stuff, and we're trying to figure out what to do in April. If you have any ideas, throw them in the chat, in the comments. We would love to hear from you.
We would. We appreciate you coming along on the journey through film that Mike and I are walking on ourselves. I'm learning a lot. He's learning how much of a pain in the ass I can be to deal with as a casual film watcher. So please join us next week for Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia.